The four-elephant immortal suppressing pillars, in the end, were never reclaimed by Luo Tong from Lin Dong, which clearly infuriated him. However, with Lin Dong's identity as the Dragon Clan's penalty elder coming to light, Luo Tong grew significantly wary. Although his gaze at Lin Dong was filled with malice, he ultimately had no choice but to retreat begrudgingly, filled with murderous intent, alongside Ting Feng and the rest of the Mang Mountain forces, in a shameful withdrawal from this ancient demonic beast plane. Lin Dong hovered in the sky, watching as the Mang Mountain army retreated like a receding tide. Only then did his tense body finally relax, with fatigue washing over him, leaving his limbs feeling somewhat powerless. This grueling battle was far from easy, as there remained a vast gap between his power and that of someone at the true revolution stage. Even though he held his ground against Mang Mountain in the heavenly arena, Lin Dong understood that the real reason Luo Tong withdrew was due to the presence of the Dragon Clan. It was like borrowing the tiger's might with the fox's reputation, Lin Dong murmured to himself. He knew that the Four-Elephant Palace and the Dragon Clan didn't have much of a connection, yet from a certain perspective, the fact that the Dragon Clan entrusted him with the penalty seal subtly indicated something. As long as Lin Dong didn't do anything outrageous, the Dragon Clan wouldn't interfere, just as they turned a blind eye to the recent events since they saw potential in Lin Dong, given he bore the primordial dragon bones. This time, I'll owe the Dragon Clan a favor, and if there's a chance in the future, I'll repay it, Lin Dong smiled, accustomed to reciprocating kindness. This sort of favor would remain remembered in his heart. Let's retreat as well. Lin Dong turned to Little Yin, the heavenly dragon demon commander, and others, smiling. Okay, Little Yin nodded. The three heavenly dragon demon commanders exchanged glances with no objections. Earlier, there might have been some reluctance in accepting Lin Dong's leadership, but after this battle, any hesitance had vanished. Lin Dong had proved with strength that he deserved to lead. Furthermore, only someone like him, the Dragon Clan's penalty elder, could provide the Four-Elephant Palace with the formidable background that would not fear Mang Mountain. As the heavenly dragon demon commanders' gazes shifted, they looked at the endless sea of people on the plains, feeling a surge of enthusiasm. They knew that from today, the Four-Elephant Palace would become the true ruler of the beast combat domain, and their names would quickly spread throughout the demonic beast world, far surpassing their former status. The clash of two colossal forces gradually came to an end over the ancient demonic beast plains, but the tremors from that end spread rapidly. The outcome, a draw, surprised most since the newly established Four-Elephant Palace had a considerable disparity with Mang Mountain. Yet, who could have expected the Four-Elephant Palace, initially destined to lose, to turn the tables to a draw? Even though the battle ended in a draw, it was clear to all that the victory belonged to the Four-Elephant Palace, as they repelled the fierce onslaught from Mang Mountain entirely. From then on, the new Four-Elephant Palace could truly stand tall in the beast combat domain. This nascent power was no longer easily overlooked by other powerful entities, especially with the precedent set by Mang Mountain. Lin Dong's identity as the Dragon Clan's penalty elder was enough to make it clear that an enormous power stood behind the Four-Elephant Palace. With the Dragon Clan's presence as a deterrent, the Four-Elephant Palace was poised to peacefully emerge from its development phase and ultimately become a formidable entity capable of defending itself. The skirmish on the ancient demonic beast plains sent shockwaves far and wide, causing the entire beast combat domain to remain extraordinarily tumultuous even 10 days later. Amidst this fervor, the domain's structure began to shift subtly. Where chaos once reigned and powers were unable to subdue each other, a giant emerged that could conquer any other faction. This emergence does not intend to allow the vast territory that now belongs to it to revert to its former disorder. With external threats removed, the next step is ensuring that the Four-Elephant Palace becomes the sole dominator within the beast combat domain. In the beast combat domain, there originally were 8 demon commanders, with the 3 led by the heavenly dragon demon commander being the most formidable. Other than Su Zhong, the previous demon commander of Thunder Abyss Mountain, who had already been dealt with by Lin Dong and his companions, there were still 4 more demon commanders. These commanders were well-known leaders within the domain. If the Four-Elephant Palace wanted complete control of the beast combat domain, these 4 demon commanders would indeed pose some resistance. After all, even though they used to rely on the three major demon commanders, they still enjoyed some degree of autonomy. In their territory, they were undisputed leaders. However, merging into the four-elephant palace would inevitably diminish their authority and place restrictions upon them. Naturally, this potential loss would create some resistance in their hearts. Lin Dong understood this situation clearly. So, he found an appropriate time and sent invitations to the four demon commanders to come to Thunder Abyss Mountain, which was now the headquarters of the Four-Elephant Palace. Half an hour later, under the calm gazes of the Heavenly Dragon Demon Commander, Ghost Eagle Demon Commander, and Golden Ape Demon Commander, the four demon commanders ultimately chose to fully integrate into the Four-Elephant Palace. Convincing them wasn't too difficult. Lin Dong calmly explained that from then on, no independent factions would be allowed in the beast combat domain. Otherwise, they would be considered enemies of the Four-Elephant Palace, which would lead to their eradication. Thus, they were left with two choices: join the Four-Elephant Palace or be eliminated. It was a forceful and uncompromising approach, but Lin Dong knew it was the only way to truly subdue these equally unruly demon commanders. Of course, alongside his authoritarian approach, Lin Dong also promised some benefits. Most enticing to these demon commanders were the powerful relics of the ancients, which held significant allure for them. Faced with this familiar carrot-and-stick strategy, the four demon commanders could only bow their heads in acceptance. After all, how could they possibly contend against the Four-Elephant Palace, which now boasted a power comparable to 5 revolution stage experts? In addition, they harbored ambitions. If they ventured on their own, they might never realize their potential. Better to join forces with the Four-Elephant Palace, led by a dragon clan background, which at least gave them something to boast about to others. With the four demon commanders joining, subsequent matters became much easier. Most forces in the beast combat domain, after careful consideration, decided to submit to the Four-Elephant Palace. Of course, there were exceptions. However, these exceptions started to fade when Little Yin led the tiger-devouring army to completely wipe out a once-defiant faction. Thus, the entire beast combat domain underwent a whirlwind consolidation, with tiny forces merging into the Four-Elephant Palace like streams flowing into a river, further expanding its size and strength. Clearly, such integration was just the beginning. To thoroughly transform the Four-Elephant Palace into a formidable entity would require a significant period of adjustment. Lin Dong entrusted these responsibilities to Little Yin and the four demon commanders, acknowledging he wasn't suited for such tasks. Unlike Tang Xinlian, who expertly managed the vast Flame Divine Palace, even her master, Mo Luo, couldn't interfere. Despite the chaos in the beast combat domain, there were hidden talents. Lin Dong believed that with careful cultivation, the potential of the Four-Elephant Palace would greatly exceed that of the Mang Mountain. And then, perhaps, it would be time for him to truly return to the Eastern Mystery Region. After all, he had promised that upon his return to the Eastern Mystery Region, it would mark the annihilation of the Yuan Gate. Charging in alone would lack impact. After entrusting the many affairs of the Four-Elephant Palace to Little Yin and his companions, Lin Dong secluded himself for quiet cultivation. His previous battle with Luo Tong revealed his own power's shortcomings, affecting the persistence of his combat abilities. In the Demon Beast Ancient Plains, though Luo Tong lost, it didn't necessarily mean he was truly defeated by Lin Dong. As a super strong member of the Nine Phoenix clan, he undoubtedly had other means, so in a life-and-death battle, the outcome could still vary. Therefore, constant self-improvement was necessary. However, Lin Dong's quiet cultivation lasted only 7 days before Little Yin roused him from his seclusion. When Lin Dong emerged from the training room, he immediately noticed Little Yin's somewhat somber expression. "What's wrong?" Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly. Upon hearing these words, Lin Dong's pupils instantly shrank. Knowing little Mink well, he understood that the fellow was highly proud and would always want to solve any large troubles by himself, never actively seeking their help. But now, little Mink unexpectedly had people send a message from the clan. "It seems that fellow has encountered significant trouble." Lin Dong chuckled, glancing at Little Yin, who looked somewhat worried. In his dark eyes, however, a fierce glint was gathering. Anyone who wanted to trouble Lin Dong's brother. It wouldn't be that simple. When Lin Dong arrived at the front hall, he saw a middle-aged man sitting there anxiously. This person wasn't unfamiliar. One of the 3 revolution stage super strong practitioners who accompanied little Mink to the beast combat domain. As Lin Dong entered the hall, the middle-aged man noticed him immediately, stood up hurriedly, and cupped his fists, saying, "Brother Lin Dong, I am Wu Zhong. I hope you can forgive my intrusion this time." "Brother Wu Zhong, there's no need for such formality." Lin Dong shook his head, yet his gaze was somewhat serious. Without unnecessary words, he directly asked, "Has little Mink encountered trouble?" Wu Zhong's expression also turned solemn as he slowly nodded and said, "Some issues have arisen within the clan, quite troublesome. Little Mink asked me to invite you over." "What kind of issues?" Lin Dong frowned. Wu Zhong's gaze swept around the hall, ensuring there were no outsiders, then hesitated slightly before saying, "Perhaps little Mink has mentioned to you that he is one of the candidates for the next clan leader of the heavenly demon Mink clan." Lin Dong nodded slightly. "Over 100 years ago, little Mink was the most talented member of our clan. At that time, among the several candidates, he was not only the strongest but also had the most support. If nothing unexpected happened, after the old clan leader stepped down, he would smoothly become the next clan leader," Wu Zhong said. "But something unexpected did happen," Lin Dong murmured. "Perhaps it was after that incident that little Mink's spirit was all that remained, hiding in the ancestral stone. And that's when he met Lin Dong." Wu Zhong nodded, his eyes carrying a hint of gloom. "A century ago, during an outing, little Mink was ambushed by mysterious assailants. He was severely injured and fled, but remained missing for almost 100 years. In his absence, the clan experienced some division. Nobody knew whether he was dead or alive, and another candidate, who posed the greatest threat to little Mink, unexpectedly rose to prominence. This person's talent was not much inferior to little Mink, but he previously showed no ambition. Surprisingly, after little Mink's disappearance, he swiftly defeated all other competitors. Using his formidable means, he managed to sway even those elders originally supporting little Mink to his camp over the century. At this point, Wu Zhong sighed helplessly. Although little Mink has returned now, that person has already established a strong foundation, gaining more support within the clan than little Mink. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes slightly. A person who truly understands patience. It seems he is quite a formidable opponent, able to push little Mink to this point. By the way, who does your heavenly demon Mink clan leader support? Lin Dong suddenly asked. As the clan leader, his choice is evidently crucial. The old clan leader is little Mink's father, so naturally and rationally he supports little Mink. However, since little Mink's disappearance, the clan leader has entered the celestial cavern for secluded cultivation, not managing clan affairs for 100 years. Therefore, decisions within the clan are now made by the elders collectively. Precisely because of the clan leader's prolonged seclusion, the clan has decided to select a candidate for the clan leader to help manage affairs now, Wu Zhong said with a wry smile. And deciding on a candidate now doesn't favor little Mink. If Hao Jiyu becomes the candidate, with his methods, little Mink's support could gradually decrease over time. Even if the clan leader comes out of seclusion, it might be beyond resolution. Hao Jiyu, Lin Dong murmured, recognizing the name of little Mink's formidable competitor. The clan has decided to discuss candidates in 5 days, and little Mink asked me to bring you to the heavenly demon Mink clan before then, Wu Zhong explained, puzzled by little Mink's decision, as Lin Dong's power, though formidable, seemed insufficient to sway the decisions of the clan's many elders. Yet, despite his confusion, Wu Zhong followed little Mink's instructions without question. Did little Mink say anything else? Lin Dong asked Wu Zhong. Wu Zhong thought for a moment before responding somewhat blankly. Little Mink just said for me to follow his instructions. He mentioned you might be able to help him with some issues, though I'm not sure why he believes so. He wasn't entirely sure what little Mink meant, but since his help was needed, Lin Dong wouldn't refuse. Immediately, Wu Zhong said gravely. The situation within the clan was tense, and he wanted to return quickly to help relieve some of the pressure on little Mink. Then let's head out. Lin Dong didn't hesitate. He turned to look at the worried little Yin behind him and smiled. You stay here. The four-elephant palace has just stabilized and still needs your oversight. I'll handle things with little Mink. Little Yin nodded reluctantly. Compared to the four-elephant palace, he clearly valued little Mink more. However, given that he hadn't reached the revolution stage yet, he wouldn't be much help to little Mink even if he went, so it was better to stay. Big brother, be careful, little Yin cautioned. From Wu Zhong's words, it was clear that little Mink wasn't in the best situation, and Lindong would likely face considerable trouble on this trip. Lindong nodded and wasted no time, moving forward with Wu Zhong right behind him. The Heavenly Demon Mink clan was located in the southwestern part of the Demon Realm, in a famous region known as the Heavenly Demon Domain. This domain belonged to the Heavenly Demon Mink clan, one of the four dominant clans. Here, they were the undisputed rulers, and every other race in the area revered them. When Lindong and Wu Zhong arrived in the Heavenly Demon Domain 2 days later, they hurried toward the deep recesses of the Heavenly Demon Mountain Range. Deep within the Heavenly Demon Domain lay the endless expanse of the 100,000 mountains, with peaks soaring tens of thousands of feet high, steep and perilous. The gales in the sky were fiercely strong, making it difficult even for experts of the Death Mystique stage to endure long flights. Upon reaching the Heavenly Demon Mountains, Wu Zhong let out a whistle, summoning a massive blood eagle to serve as their mount. Half an hour later, they crossed the towering mountains and spotted a stretch of ancient halls. At the same time, a multitude of powerful, domineering auras registered in Lindong's senses. In the skies above these mountains, menacing giant birds flew past in flocks. These demonic beasts radiated strong energies and served as a natural defense. The Heavenly Demon Mink clan's defenses seemed particularly stringent during this time. Even with Wu Zhong's escort, Lindong was thoroughly checked before being allowed to enter. These guys are becoming more and more disrespectful, daring to inspect someone invited by little Mink. Wu Zhong was annoyed by this scrutiny, though it didn't bother Lindong. In the past, no one would have dared to question someone they brought along. Seeing Wu Zhong's anger, Lindong tried to soothe him while his mind grew more concerned. The person named Hao Jiuyo was indeed formidable, gradually diminishing little Mink's influence within the Heavenly Demon Mink clan to such an extent. The two headed straight into the heart of the mountains. A few minutes later, Wu Zhong descended from a towering peak, with Lindong following close behind. As he landed, Wu Zhong hesitated. Raising his head, Lindong saw a group approaching them. Leading them was a man in gray-black attire, who appeared quite young with a handsome, if somewhat subtly sinister, face. His thin lips, when pressed together, seemed to curve in a disturbing smile. Lindong focused his gaze on the gray-black figure, noting a powerful aura that indicated he had reached the level of the reincarnation stage. Noticing Wu Zhong's discomfort, Lindong cast a glance at the approaching man, thoughts swirling. Well, Wu Zhong, have you been out on some business? The man came forward, smiling warmly at Wu Zhong. Wu Zhong forced a laugh and nodded. Just brought a friend to visit. That shouldn't be a problem, should it? Young clan leader Hao Jiuyo. In the Heavenly Demon Mink clan, any clan leader candidate could be called a young clan leader. Hao Jiuyo. Lindong's lips pressed together. Hao Jiuyo smiled, his inscrutable eyes landing briefly on Lindong. In that instant, Lindong caught a glimpse of cold severity behind that gaze. This friend must be Lindong, the one little Mink mentioned, right? Hao Jiuyo said with a smile. Wu Zhong's expression shifted slightly, surprised that Hao Jiuyo was privy to such information. Lindong's expression didn't change. Hee, guests are always welcome. Brother Lindong, feel free to explore our clan. If you need anything, just come to me, Hao Jiuyo said warmly after giving Lindong a once-over. Lindong nodded with a smile, but internally, his guard rose slightly. If Wu Cheng hadn't shared some stories about Hao Jiuyo, Lindong might have felt a slight liking for him upon this first meeting. This guy surely isn't an easy one to deal with. Young clan leader Jiuyo, we have some matters to attend to. We'll be on our way, Wu Cheng said, clearly not interested in lingering for a chat with Hao Jiuyo. He pulled Lindong along, swiftly moving past Hao Jiuyo's entourage. Hao Jiuyo merely smiled faintly at Wu Cheng's behavior. As he slightly turned his head to watch Lindong's departing figure, his gentle smile gradually faded. Young clan leader Jiuyo, why has Lindong come to the heavenly demon Mink clan at this time? Someone beside Hao Jiuyo whispered. Hao Jiuyo smiled subtly and began walking forward, while a cold undertone discreetly spread from his voice. Even little Mink was dealt with by me. What could a mere human at the great completion of the death mystique stage amount to? That was the current biggest rival to little Mink, wasn't he? Lindong mused quietly as he stole a glance back while moving away. Yes, Wu Chong nodded, his expression slightly somber. As someone from the heavenly demon Mink clan, he was very familiar with Hao Jiuyo's formidable methods. Hmph. If little Mink hadn't been ambushed and gone missing for a century, how could Hao Jiuyo possibly compete with him? Back then, when little Mink was around, he was as obedient as anything in front of him. Wu Chong remarked coldly. That's exactly what makes him formidable, Lindong murmured, understanding well the concept of patience and how a person who embodies it can be difficult to deal with. However, about that person, Lindong frowned slightly. It might be because both of them weren't ordinary individuals, but he always felt an unpleasant sensation from Hao Jiuyo. Brother Lindong, we're here. Wu Chong's voice came as Lindong was lost in thought. When he looked up, there was a serene courtyard ahead. Deep within, he could vaguely see a familiar figure. They walked into the courtyard and soon saw a slender figure sitting cross-legged within a stone pavilion. The air was filled with the scent of sandalwood, adding to the tranquility. As they approached, the figure opened his previously closed eyes, revealing a handsome face with a hint of helplessness. I didn't expect to have to call you here, he said to Lindong. I'm your big brother. Of course, you should call me if there's trouble, Lindong replied, sitting boldly in the pavilion with a smile. Little Mink pouted, but sensed the travel-worn aura around Lindong. It was clear he had hurried over without pause, which warmed little Mink's heart. The troubles within the heavenly demon Mink clan were not something just anyone would dare to get involved in, yet Lindong had come without hesitation. I've got the gist of the situation. It seems your position as young clan leader is at risk? Lindong asked directly, his eyes serious as he looked at little Mink. Little Mink's narrow eyes squinted slightly, his handsome face appearing rather stern. His voice turned icy, just a follower from years back. While I was missing all these years, his ambition has grown exponentially. Though, he does have some skills, little Mink admitted, pausing. It seemed his current state in the clan wasn't too favorable, or else his pride wouldn't allow him to say such words. You mentioned before you were ambushed because of the ancestral stone, Lindong said, his dark eyes hinting at sharpness. Could this have something to do with Hao Jiuyo? From what Lindong observed of Hao Jiuyo's demeanor, he was clearly a master of patience. Back in the day, he might have purposefully followed little Mink to gain his trust and wait for the right opportunity. There weren't many who knew my route back then. Hao Jiuyo was indeed one of them, little Mink replied, his face tinged with gloom as he nodded. I knew that scoundrel was up to no good, Wu Chong said through gritted teeth. Being a member of little Mink's lineage, he naturally held no favor for Hao Jiuyo, who attempted to usurp little Mink's position. But without solid evidence, it's useless to tell the elders. Hao Jiuyo is fairly trusted now. If I were to accuse him, they might think I'm looking for an excuse to bring him down, little Mink said. Lindong nodded slightly. After all, little Mink had been gone for a century, and his reputation within the clan was not what it once was. Furthermore, his father, the current leader of the heavenly demon Mink clan, was in long-term seclusion. How can I help? Lindong asked, looking at little Mink with a smile. I'm now the penal elder of the dragon clan. This status should hold some weight with your clan. Although I can't mobilize the dragon clan's powers, it might offer some support for you. Upon hearing this, little Mink and Wu Zhong were both taken aback, and then stared at Lindong in astonishment. As members of one of the four dominant clans, they were well aware of the rights and status held by the dragon clan's punishment elder, but they hadn't expected the dragon clan to bestow such a position to Lindong. Some things happened within the dragon clan, and then they insisted on making me their punishment elder, Lindong shrugged, not going into too much detail. The position of punishment elder in the dragon clan does indeed hold significant authority, but what I need your help with doesn't really require it, little Mink chuckled. What is it? Little Mink pursed his lips, then waved his sleeve, enveloping the stone pavilion in a light barrier. His voice turned slightly somber as he slowly said, "I want you to help me go to the celestial cavern where my father is in secluded meditation. He has been in seclusion for a century, with no news coming out, not even responding to messages sent to him. So, I suspect he may have encountered trouble in the celestial cavern, or worse, been trapped." "What?" Wu Zhong immediately jumped up in shock, his face filled with disbelief at Little Mink's speculation. Lin Dong's brows furrowed slightly. Little Mink's father, being the patriarch of the heavenly demon Mink clan, must be incredibly powerful. Could it be possible to trap him for a century without alerting other clan members? Some of our old-timers in the heavenly demon Mink clan often go into seclusion for 100 years or more. At first glance, my father's long seclusion doesn't seem out of place, so even other elders haven't thought much of it. Little Mink's gaze was somewhat chilly, and he continued, "But half a month ago, when I tried to approach the celestial cavern, I was stopped by two elders who belonged to Aodrio's faction. The celestial cavern isn't easily accessible. Perhaps they just wanted to prevent you from disturbing people who are in seclusion." Wu Zhong suggested hesitantly. "That could be plausible, but my father once gave me a lifeblood feather, which has begun to change recently." Little Mink extended his slender hand, revealing a blood-red feather that had become extremely dim, its life force gradually weakening. "This?" Wu Zhong was startled by the sight and quickly said, "Little Mink, why haven't you informed the other elders of this situation? Seclusion carries risks. They can be trivial or fatal. If Little Mink were to tell the elders, they would only assume their patriarch faced a mishap during meditation, and in such a case, it would be best not to disturb." Lin Dong shook his head. "It's not due to a cultivation mishap." Little Mink's handsome face turned exceptionally cold, and as he brushed his fingers over the feather, a faint script appeared. "Demon prison? Demon prison? What is that?" Wu Zhong was confused, yet Lin Dong's expression changed dramatically. He was familiar with the name because the powerful alien demons that once attacked the Flame God Temple came from this extremely terrifying and mysterious organization. "You know what this is?" Little Mink asked Lin Dong, surprised by his reaction. "It's a mysterious organization formed by alien demons, perhaps the most frightening power in this world." Lin Dong sighed deeply and briefly recounted his experiences at the Flame God Temple. "I suspected it might be related to alien demons, but I never imagined it was an organization." Little Mink muttered to himself, his eyes turning fierce. "These damn creatures have silently infiltrated our heavenly demon Mink clan." Lin Dong took a deep breath, suppressing his inner turmoil. The methods of demon prison were immensely powerful, managing to imprison the heavenly demon Mink clan's patriarch without anyone noticing. To achieve this, no matter how mighty the demon prison is, they couldn't have done it alone unless... Little Mink's slender hand slowly clenched, his knuckles showing visibly. "Unless they have an insider." Lin Dong sighed, completing the thought. Demon prison strength might be too much for one heavenly demon Mink clan to contend with, but to accomplish all this undetected, they must be familiar with every detail of the clan. "Who's that son of a turtle?" Wu Zhong's eyes were fierce, emanating an intense killing intent. He was clearly furious. Little Mink smiled, but it was a cold smile. "Who else could it be?" "How Jiuyo?" Lin Dong pressed his lips together. Who else could it be but that guy who suddenly rose in the heavenly demon Mink clan and tried to seize power? "I'm going to kill that scum." Wu Zhong stood up, seething with murderous intent, but was promptly reprimanded by Little Mink to sit back down. "All of this is just our conjecture. How do you intend to kill him?" Wu Zhong gritted his teeth. "So what now? If that guy genuinely gains power within the clan, won't it spell the end for the heavenly demon Minks?" Little Mink fell silent, then looked at Lin Dong with resignation. "Now it's all on you." He knew, although Lin Dong's strength didn't seem remarkable, when it came to understanding the alien demons, none of them could surpass him. Lin Dong nodded slightly, pondering for a moment before speaking. "Find a way to get me into the celestial cavern. I'll investigate. The only way to change the current situation is to rescue your father. Without that, no one will believe you." Little Mink nodded as well. "It's up to you. Don't worry. Dong smiled. Over the years, he had dealt with alien demons countless times. He had practically earned the title of a demon extermination specialist. The celestial cavern lies deep within the 100,000 mountains and is considered a forbidden land within the heavenly demon Mink clan. Only those of high standing within the tribe have the privilege to enter for seclusion training. However, throughout history, many top warriors of the heavenly demon Mink clan who entered for breakthroughs never returned. It wasn't until much later, when clan members ventured there, that they discovered their remains failed during breakthroughs. Because of this, ordinary clan members are strictly forbidden from entering the celestial cavern. Even those who wish to enter need the approval of the elders. But clearly, if Dong wanted access, taking the official path would be impossible. At the heart of the mountain range stands a series of towering peaks, where a bottomless dark chasm is located. The immense cavern is 1,000 feet wide, resembling a ferocious dark mouth poised to swallow any creature that dares enter. Above this chasm, ancient light runes float in the air, forming a barrier sealing the darkness below. Zooming in, on the peaks surrounding the chasm, one can faintly see several aged figures sitting cross-legged, their eyes closed in meditation. Yet, the vast, ocean-like waves of their primordial energy let you know these rock-like figures wield terrifying power. They are the guardians of the celestial cavern, assigned by the heavenly demon Mink clan. The wind howled through the mountain forest, leaving no signs of life in this secluded area. It's a place forbidden even to harmless birds, ensuring those inside the cavern have a perfect environment for seclusion. The heavenly demon Mink clan clearly eradicated any potential threats. Whoosh! This silence didn't last long as the sound of rushing wind suddenly echoed in the distance. A figure, swift as lightning, approached, prompting the guardians near the cavern to open their eyes and furrow their brows at the familiar presence. Little Mink, the area near the celestial cavern is off-limits. Leave before the elders notice. An old man with white eyebrows said from a mountain peak. My father has been in seclusion for 100 years. I must go in and find out what's happening. Little Mink declared, staring intently at the bottomless cavern. Little Mink, a century of seclusion is normal for us. The old patriarch might be at a crucial stage. If interrupted, the consequences could be disastrous, so don't act rashly, the white-browed elder advised. But I feel something's amiss. I must go in today. Little Mink's face turned cold as he spoke. Without further words, he transformed into a streak of light and headed toward the cavern. Stop him! The white-browed elder's face turned slightly angry before he shouted. Boom! With his shout, 5 figures leapt out from the surrounding peaks. Vast primordial energy rolled forth like crashing waves, sweeping toward Little Mink without hesitation. Humph! Seeing the fierce assault, Little Mink's gaze darkened. He extended his hand, and a crescent of purple-black light formed in his palm. The 5 guardians, seeing their offensive broken, had a flicker of seriousness in their eyes. Despite their high status within their clan and being at the revolution stage in terms of strength, they hadn't expected that even combined, Little Mink could break through their assault. Even though they hadn't gone all out, Little Mink's display earned their silent admiration. But admiration aside, they hesitated not a moment in their response. In a flash, the 5 of them appeared in front of Little Mink, forming a formation. Vast primordial energy surged, enveloping Little Mink within a ring of light. Boom, boom, boom. Little Mink unleashed its full battle prowess, causing the light formation to tremble. The arms of the 5 guardians also shook slightly. Violent primordial energy spread from the sky, whipping up fierce winds that plunged the originally calm mountain range into chaos. This kid, the white-browed elder gazed at the sky, watching Little Mink, struggling within the light formation yet still resisting vehemently. He shook his head helplessly, then shifted his figure to appear in front of the light formation. With a palm strike, the formation rapidly shrank, gradually imprisoning the trapped Little Mink like a jail. Little Mink, stop causing trouble. If the Elders' Council finds out about this, there'll be no end to the reprimand. In their eyes, this kind of behavior makes them think you are too reckless, unfit to be clan leader material. The white-browed elder spoke only after Little Mink was trapped. "Uncle Bai, my father is really in trouble." Little Mink's gaze was fixed strongly on the white-browed elder, speaking in a low voice. The white-browed elder was slightly swayed by Little Mink's serious demeanor, yet he still shook his head. It's not only the old clan leader secluded in the celestial cavern, but also other highly senior figures of the clan. Disturbing them would indeed be a problem. Now, calm yourself here, and we won't inform the Elders' Council about this. With that, the group sat cross-legged in the air, maintaining the formation trapping Little Mink. Seeing this, Little Mink had no choice but to sit down as well. However, beneath its slightly downcast eyes, a determined glint flickered. Meanwhile, none of the guardians noticed that at the edge of the celestial cavern, a rune flickered briefly. The once perfect light curtain now had a minute crack, through which a phantom-like figure slipped inside. As that figure entered the celestial cavern, Little Mink's tense body relaxed, and the vast primordial energy surrounding it retracted into its body. Seeing him like this, the white-browed elder and others let out a sigh of relief. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, the formation was undone. "Little Mink, head back." The white-browed elder waved his hand. Little Mink took a deep look at the dark celestial cavern, said no more, and swiftly disappeared. Watching Little Mink leave, the white-browed elder turned his gaze toward the celestial cavern, a slight frown on his face. The clan leader's seclusion this time is indeed peculiar. I wonder if what Little Mink said. One of the guardians sighed. "We have the duty to guard, but not to intrude upon the celestial cavern. The clan leader possesses formidable strength. How could anything happen to him easily?" The white-browed elder shook his head, moved back to the mountain peak, and sat down cross-legged. Though his eyes gradually closed, a hint of worry was visible, followed by a silent sigh. At this time, Lin Dong wore an expression of surprise, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Previously, amidst the chaos Little Mink created, he found an opportunity to slip into the sealed celestial cavern. However, once inside, he was awed by its peculiar nature. Surrounding him was not the expected cavern environment, but a space so dark that directions were imperceptible. The all-encompassing darkness carried a suffocating weight, and the deathly stillness suggested no living presence. Standing still, Lin Dong glanced around the dark space, finding no signposts. Yet, he vaguely sensed a pathway of darkness unfolding from under his feet in all directions. The complexity of this celestial cavern exceeded his imagination. Lin Dong sensed his surroundings but gleaned nothing. After a moment's contemplation, he clenched his hand, revealing a dim blood feather. Little Mink's father's life blood feather. With the blood feather in hand, Lin Dong closed his dark eyes, and after nearly 10 minutes, he finally opened them, his gaze settling on the west. Through the blood feather, he felt a subtle connection from that direction. Lin Dong murmured to himself and then swiftly moved toward the direction he sensed, his primordial energy stirring within him to form a protective barrier on the surface of his body. In such a mysterious and unpredictable place, it was best to remain cautious. In the darkness, there was no light, and the silence was enough to instill fear in anyone's heart. Yet, Lin Dong remained calm. The darkness and isolation he faced when subduing the Ancestral Devourer Talisman was a harsher experience compared to this. Lin Dong's rapid movement continued for a full half-hour before he suddenly paused, his gaze shifting to the left. There, he felt a peculiar fluctuation, and he reached out to gently touch that dark space. Buzz. As his hand made contact with the darkness, a ripple spread, causing the darkness to gradually become illusory. Behind the darkness lay a silent cavern, illuminated by dim candlelight. Within the cave, a figure sat cross-legged, appearing to be a formidable expert from the heavenly demon Mink clan. The cultivation within the cave seemed ordinary, yet Lin Dong sensed something was amiss. His gaze slowly scanned the cave, eventually fixating on the right side of the cave wall, next to the meditating figure. There grew a dark, 8-petaled flower, subtly emitting an elusive fragrance. "This is..." Lin Dong frowned slightly. The dark flower wasn't particularly strange, but he could feel a subtle tremor in both of his ancestral talismans upon seeing it. The eternal phantom demon flower. Yan's low voice suddenly emerged, carrying a sense of agitation and gravity that made Lin Dong's eyelids twitch violently, a wave of unease rising within him.